Blessings, y'all. So, there's a lot to say, and I'm struggling with where to go with this video because it seems the most clear that the changes that are happening right now are signaled through the clouds, which are transitory. Meaning, what you see is not what was. Then the clouds just disappear. Then there's just blue skies. A palette where imagination can stretch itself and build whatever there is to build. The problem with building would be not having the proper tools to suffice that structure. If you don't have the organizational skills or the memory, then what's built can easily be torn down. If it's not solid, if it's not rooted in some form of consistent, reliable mechanics. Has to be rolling. But very few things are rolling right now because energy has been replenished and diminished through the essence of work. So what is, has been, certainly, not surprising, but sometimes there's not enough preparation to set you up for the inevitable. Everybody gonna roll in their grave eventually, so put to rest the idea that one is doing so right now. If there's anything rolling, it's the wheels of time. Time that only cares for the moment, because the one outside of time is the one that isn't there, gone with the wind. If you surrender now, you won't have to later. What's coming already came. So this is part 3 of a video that was supposed to be made a week ago, but I got a phone call right after I said inevitable, which made me, that shifted my mood after I had that phone conversation, and I wasn't compelled to continue the video, so I just left it alone. But listening back to it, I felt, oh, I can keep it. And I added what I just read, something I wrote a month ago, which is relevant. But this is a new day, but the message is still the same. This will be an emotional video for me. I can already say that because I've tried to make it several times and I've been confused as to what approach to take because I'm still in a very emotional state. Because I lost a very important person to me, my grandmother. And that's shifted my whole life. And it happened just not long ago, on the 16th of November. And she lived in a senior living facility. And I work as a Stars Will Align It, currently at a senior living facility. And just knowing with the pandemic and coronavirus, how that all kind of came to be, seeing how it unfolded at one of these facilities in real time was quite astonishing. And it still is, seeing how it's unfolding. And this video is just an honor and also just in remembrance and acknowledgement of what we can do to take care of one another in a better way. Because I think we get used to just crossing things over, shrugging our shoulders, but all of our actions do matter. They all interconnect, and we can do our part. And it's not always easy to look at the ways we get our information, because a lot of the information we're getting is wrong. And if you're not resourceful, of where you're getting your knowledge, then you're going to be misled, which will continually perpetuate falsehoods and just behavior that's not good. And I think it missed all of the confusion, and one is big to ask, what do we do, right? And there's a lot of ums. There's going to be a lot of ums in this video because I feel myself trying to process all of it as I speak it, but also knowing that it's unfolding. And as I said, if you're looking for it, it already came. What's coming already came. And the inevitable is something we all expect. In this case, I'm speaking of transcendence. Living is a part of dying. I wrote something about this a while ago called The End Dance. I remember making a project called The Living Things, which you can still check out, which I express and I go into detail about life and death and how all of those two things work together. This dichotomy is necessary. Dialectical materialism, the universal law, there's always good and bad. But in particular, what I'm focusing on is the aspect of transcendence. When one leaves this earthly plane, that's not an easy feat, and a lot of people have lost so many people this year because of coronavirus and also just the nature of 2020. I think lost, what can we say about it? Lost is not found. It's certainly just a hollow abyss, a searching hand, but it's also memories and just all of the things that make up the collective. And we're all a part of that. And I find myself encouraging myself to think of all of the memories that I have of my grandmother, Gammy, who I call Granny Light. So I am going to read a portion of my latest project, Wait a Minute, Type or Fate, because my last two chapters, chapter 6, was actually dedicated to her. And this is the chapter in which I call Congregational Song All Together Now. My grandmother is Granny Light, and there's a story that I'm going to connect to another poem that's actually going to be released today, so I'll read that. Granny Light would often tell Thompson when making pancakes and fish, "You can't be cute with the flip," which was another way of saying, just get to the bottom of the surface and turn it over. She wanted Thompson to be cute with how he laid the fish down. After seasoning the fish and making sure the castor oil was hot before putting it in to fry, you needed not worry about being burned. Thompson knew the burn would sure enough come if he just threw the fish in the skillet as if he were afraid. Granny Light taught him how to lay it down cute. This soon became a lesson in Thompson's life. If he were ever going to turn over the heads in the church by viewing the world differently, he had to be wild about it, or at least cute with it. So that's definitely a memory of mine, remembering making pancakes or fish with my grandmother. She would cook so fast, and I always wanted, and she always made us a part of the process. We couldn't look at her while she was cooking. We were actively involved in that, and she taught us all of these different tricks. And when it came to laying fish, it was just like, just lay it in there cute, Jesse. Don't be afraid of it. Like, why? Don't be afraid of the burn. Like, just lay it in there cute. So I wanted to add that in there. And there's a line in this poem that I'm going to release today called Personally Obviously, in which I say, a searching hand inside of their purse. Could they be looking for a nurse or a rhyme with signature flavor, one that others could not contest but savor? And that reminds me of my grandmother when we would be in church. Me and my brother, obviously restless, me hungry, wanting something to eat. I would ask her for some candy, and she always had the soft, dissolving peppermints, which are the best peppermints to have. And of course, she would dig into her purse, and then you finally hear, it missed all of the other noises, the sound of the peppermint, and there's nothing like that. So I'm gonna always be informed and thankful for the many lessons my grandmother has taught me. And this was obviously something I sort of knew was going to happen after a series of other things happened later in the year. And it certainly was not anything I could prepare for, as is often the case. You can't really have any preparation for any kind of loss. And even though my grandmother is with the ancestors, and I believe she has transcended just that physical acknowledgement is difficult. And I think many of you know how that feels. And if you are one of the people who have lost anyone this year, I send my deepest condolences and my blessings. Remember that this is all an end dance. We're all part of this thing, living or dead. And there's really no separation. You know, it's just a transformation. And I believe my grandmother had such a life to live that she made sure she lived it. It didn't matter where she was in her life. She was living her life. And in that respect to living, may we treat each other with kindness. And learning from our ancestors while also informing our ancestors if we hear things. Me and my grandmother would sometimes get into it, you know. I have letters from my grandmother. And I'm so thankful for them because she was always open and honest with me about how she felt. And if she didn't like something, she would tell me. And I would always try to, well, Gabby, that's not what it is. And she would listen to me. But she definitely challenged me, and I tried to challenge her if I thought she came from the 1930s. So, of course, coming from the 1930s, you have ideas that are not necessarily in line with the truth of how everyone should be treated the same way. But that's not to any disregard. It's just to stress the whole aspect of learning. You know, learning from our ancestors, and there's a way of communicating with them and sharing with them to where they can process it and understand it. We don't have to be disrespectful. You can speak your truth honestly and correctly. And the only way to do that is to acknowledge life as it expands, to not disregard it or disqualify it because you deem it unworthy, because it's too slow. You know, because as we grow older, things change. But this process is one we're all participating in. And those memories are going to parade my mind. Memories are going to often parade our minds. We're collectively going to always be reminded of the ways we influence each other. So, in honor of my grandmother, I wanted to include a short segment of my grandmother singing. I recorded this 15 years ago. November 27th, 2005. I was 13 years old. I had a big block cassette player that I brought into the church, and I recorded the whole service. I'm not going to obviously play that, but me and my brother gave a testimony, as well as my grandmother, and she gave a song, a beautiful song, and I'm going to include that in there because she's simply saying, I've been through the storm and rain, but I made it. I had heartache and pain, but I made it. I was down, 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 but I made it. I praise God, I praise God, 'cause I made it. So may we all make it through amidst the mist. Blessings.
Storm and rain, but I made it. Yeah.